Thank you, everyone, for coming to our 2020-201 presentations. So for the last month, the three teams that we've had have had a good time getting into some HTML, some CSS, and some JavaScript. And so today we'll see their presentations on the projects that they worked on for the last week. Go down. Yeah. That was them in class. And I also want to take a quick second to thank our sponsors for DeltaV, UFG, MSuite, Transamerica, CCR, Leapfrog, ACT, Higher Learning Technologies, and Midwest Microwave Solutions Incorporated. A special thanks goes out to UFG, MSuite, Leapfrog, and CCR, and ACT, all for hiring some of our graduates. So without further ado, our first presentation is the Night 201 class, and I believe they have a site called Equip Me that they'll tell you more about. Are you guys ready?
Welcome, good afternoon. Thank you for being here to witness the nights and weekends. My understanding is the first one for DeltaV Code School 201. I'd like to first introduce Justin.
Hello, my name is Justin Schroyer. I have a strong business and customer service background. I spent the better part of 15 years working in the retail industry before I ended up deciding to go back to school. For 3 years, I balanced school, work, and being a single dad before I graduated with a bachelor's degree in computer science in 2015. I ended up turning an internship into a temporary web developer for a medical research team. After that, I found it difficult to actually get another job as a developer. For the next 4 years, I worked in various software support roles, and eventually I enrolled in DeltaV. My goal was to improve my web programming skills and give myself the ability to move into a developer position, whether it was internally within my current company or externally, overall to start making better use of my degree. Within the project, I served as Scrum Master. I reviewed all submissions and reviewed them. My primary focus was on the shop.js page, but I worked on HTML, CSS, and JavaScript for all 3 pages. Next we have CM.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Siham. I came to the US 6 years ago from a country of Algeria. I studied computer science there and graduated on I get a master's degree in information system. When I first came here to the US, I started working on retail, then as a school bus driver for the Iowa City Community School District. I recently heard about DeltaV, and I joined for the 101 and ended up signing for the whole courses. It's about time for me to go back to what I like the most, computer science. My participation in this project was as a developer. I worked on almost all the pages, but mostly on the cart, on the JavaScript, on cart.js, and on the CSS for the shopping cart page. And let me introduce Lily.
Thank you. My name is Lily McBride. I came to DeltaV with some experience in programming in Java from classes at Kirkwood Community College, so I already knew that coding would be rewarding for me. I started this program because of a desire to participate in more engaging and meaningful work, and I plan to go all the way through 401. The 201 class has been great for helping me gain new technical skills, specifically in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and has allowed me to explore my passion of finding new and better solutions to logical problems. CSS is something that was especially new to me, and in my role as product owner for this project, I was able to delve deep into the CSS needed to develop the About Us page and the footer for all 3 pages. I was also able to spend some time working through some bugs in our JavaScript. For example, when you toggled back and forth between the shopping page, the cart, and the About Us page, the items in the shopping cart weren't being saved. The cart was being reset each time, and I fixed that. And now let me introduce Yvette.
Good afternoon. My name is Yvette Clapp, and I have an MBA in finance and 15 years of management and 20 years of leadership experience. I have recently taken data analysis and project management courses, and I came to DeltaV because I had seen that I need to reinvent myself. I think we're hitting a point in life that things are changing rapidly, and the coding seemed to be a new future. I am going to complete all the courses, and with my proven experience for leading teams through process changes, my goal is to reinvent myself into coding where I can utilize my passions to benefit the customer. My role in our project was program manager. As program manager, we used a Trello type organization with cards and assignments, and then we had checklists within those for everybody to check out a card and then complete their assignments, and then move those to be merged so that Justin could then take care of those and put those into our final project. We also had a few challenges. Some of the challenges, and I think every team has these, are team dynamics. So everybody on a team always works slightly differently, different ideas, sometimes just being able to coordinate those and bring those together. Some are in different areas and different spots of progression. We also had coding style differences. So as each person was trying to go through and merge their information, look at other coding, it got to be a little bit hairy because you're trying to figure out who wrote what and how so that you could understand how it was written and how it would affect other pieces. Then obviously we have the issues with the coronavirus and not being able to meet regularly together. Didn't know how we were going to do that. Things were changing rapidly. We had to meet offline, and we had to do other online communications. Nights and weekends. Anybody have a life outside of doing something during the day? Nights and weekends was a little bit different. Did we sign up for nights and weekends? Yes. Nights and weekends is interesting. This is the first nights and weekends course. I think we played it out as far as we could, and it was very interesting, and we had our own challenges with that. And in that, I'm going to turn it over to Lily to talk about our project.
Thank you. So I'm going to speak to our problem domain. We wanted to build a customer portal that people could get into with the use of a predetermined login and then filter through items that they could see additional details about if they wanted to. They would then add any of these items to a shopping cart and receive confirmation for this. We then wanted to display that shopping cart to the user where they would be allowed to update quantities, delete items, and/or check out. In our data domain model, we also had the option of being able to make a monetary or product donation to the site via a separate form, but for our minimum viable product, we decided that was unnecessary. And now, Justin, see him?
Okay, so one of the challenges I faced when I was coding the shopping cart was preventing the page from rendering multiple times. And every time I was deleting an item from the shopping cart, I had this sum and total rendering multiple times too. So to fix that, I used the event.preventDefault function that prevented the page from rendering multiple times, and the return false at the end of the function what prevented the function from rendering multiple times and have the sum and total once for the whole cart. And now it's Justin who's going to talk about his challenges.
One of the challenges I personally faced was we wanted to have an image of the product in the shopping cart. On the shopping page, you had an image of the product and the product description. We were submitting that information in a form, so I ended up creating an input, but setting the attribute to hidden so that it would pass the image URL and pull that from local storage then. The goal of Equip Me Sports is to provide an online portal for low-income and at-risk youth to purchase sports equipment at minimal prices. The site is a conglomerate of donations from different entities. These products include new items donated by manufacturers, gently used items from everyday people, or monetary donations that were used to purchase additional equipment. This allows the kids to venture out and try multiple sports without placing that financial burden on their parents. This is our site, Equip Me Sports, our homepage. You would select a sport. We'll start with baseball. It's going to give you the applicable images. You can click on Add to Cart. And it's going to give you a confirmation the item was added to cart, and then your cart icon in the upper right corner is actually going to show how many items are in the cart. So if we add 2 more items, and then click on the cart to go to our cart, we'll give a chart that shows the ability to remove the item, the image of the item, description of the item, and the price. If we delete one of the items, subtotal, tax, and total will automatically change, and then our cart icon in the upper right corner will change as well. If we click checkout, we'll get a confirmation. Thank you for your order. We are working as fast as possible to get your product packaged. You will receive confirmation of shipment and a tracking number shortly. When you click OK, cart clears, image clears. And then finally, we have our About Us page that has images of all 4 of us and brief descriptions. And that is our site. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to witness the first 201 Nights and Weekends project demonstration. I'd like to bring up Justin, Lily, and CM again to have everybody thank them for their input on our project. Thank you. Is there any questions?
A special thank you to Craig and Kevin.
Yes.
Yes, for their help and everything.
Okay, thank you.
Well, no. Nice try. So, if you had the 2 week, so you did this over 2 weeks of nights and weekends, not the normal single project week. If you had that time over again, what would you do differently?
Oh.
So if we had more time and we had the time to meet here and work all together on the project without this challenge of remote and nights and weekends, so they work all during day. So yeah, so if I had time, I would add more option to the cart, like add the quantity, add clear cart, yeah. So, Yvette?
I would say if we had a little bit more time, that, again, with the nights and weekends, it became difficult to juggle everything. It became difficult to go, I can work an hour on my lunch hour and an hour before class, and then I come to class, and this is where we're at for the evening. I would like to have seen maybe a couple more pages. Then we could have each had a page and had some JS with it and stuff. But otherwise, I think we did really well for as much as we could. And for testing out the whole, it felt like testing out nights and weekends, I think we did as well as what we could be expected.
So part of the initial image I had for the project was having a page where if you were a donor versus someone who was buying the product, you would be able to submit your products. And that was what I would have added if we had more time.
If we could do it over again and change something about the way that we met, I would have disregarded the coronavirus restrictions for the most part. We had a really hard time making progress remotely. It was a lot easier for us to get things done when we all met in person, I think. One thing I would have added, if I had a little more time, would have been different ways to filter through our items. I think that's all.
Next question.
Individually, what are your guys' biggest challenges?
My biggest challenge was everything was a challenge, I guess. That's the first time we do a project. For example, when you start coding, you don't know where to start. So it's like a challenge. Just starting, it's a challenge. So you don't know if you start with this function, where you should start, and having everybody working on separate project, it was like a little bit hard because I had to, personally, I had to wait for Justin to be done for the shopping cart for 2 days to start the shopping cart. He was working on a shopping page. So yeah, until we fixed that, so I started my shopping cart. Yeah, Yvette?
I think what I witnessed more of, I don't know that I had as many difficulties, but what I witnessed more of is it was difficult to take it in a card-by-card process. So we didn't follow the one card equals a branch process. It was hard to understand or get our minds around, hey, by the way, you're only supposed to go this far. Then you're supposed to hand it off, somebody else is supposed to do it. You could obviously see that as you're given an assignment, you would do A to Z. That was your interpretation, your understanding of it. And I think we all got wrapped up in that at some point to where we all ended up having individual pieces and then trying to figure out how to bring them together. And I think actually one of the issues we did have was quite often with the merges. I did see that quite often. There was some rework going on there. So I'll tell you that, Justin.
We all pitched what we would like to use, and we went with mine, and sometimes having that image of what you want it to look like in your head and being able to convey that to everyone else and get everybody on board can be difficult. I think we did pretty well for the final product of matching what I thought it should look like. Other than that, definitely get issues. I got to the point where I would merge something and then send out a message. Just merged, everyone stop what you're doing, merge, so we're all working from the same place, because that definitely caused some issues.
Yeah, Git issues were definitely a challenge for me as well. I lost some work when I tried to merge, and also working remotely was probably my biggest challenge. I had some connection issues. So some days I hardly got anything done because of that. And also it was frustrating to work from the cards in that we only had 3 pages that we were allowed to make, and with CM on the working on the cart and Justin working on the shop page, sometimes it was difficult to find something that I felt that I could do while they were still working on those pages.
Next, don't be shy. We're here for your pleasure. Nobody? Oh my gosh, that was so easy. Oh.
This one's for Justin. What inspired the project?
I have 3 kids who all play multiple sports. Hockey was $400. Baseball, every time he wants a new bat, it's a couple $100. I've got a gymnast. I got volleyball. I don't even know how much money I've spent on sports equipment. It's probably, I don't want to know.
Next up, we've got our daytime 201. I believe the rescuers.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Chase Nichols. I grew up in a small town in northern Wisconsin where my parents own a bar and a motel. I've spent most of my life working in the service industry, and that had grown pretty stagnant for me. That's why I moved here to Cedar Rapids, where I'm now a full-stack developer student at DeltaV Code School. I wanted to get into it because I have a couple of friends who've been through cohorts in the past, and I've seen their success coming out of it, and I saw an opportunity not only to grow myself, but also to offer something back to the world and the people around me. So here I am.
Hi guys, I'm Marie. I just moved here, and the reason I joined DeltaV was to learn something new and change my career path. I think it would be a better life path for me, and I am really looking forward to learning more about problem solving, public speaking, and just learning how to build real-world applications. So I really look forward to continuing the program. Here's Matt.
Hi, everyone. I'm Matt Barnhart. I am an aspiring digital marketer and software developer. I have a knack for communication, human relations, and organization. And my greatest strength is probably connecting with people because I am an effective listener. I can see easily both sides of an argument. And I believe very strongly in finding mutually amicable solutions. My objective is to find a job supporting people in accomplishing their dreams, because I know very much what it's like when people don't support you, and I know the value of when they do and how powerful that is, and I want to do that. I want to be the person in people's corners. So without further ado, we want to talk to you today about Rescuer. We started with a problem domain. That being that I have found in attempting to adopt pets in my days, as the teammates have, that there are so many options. There are, as we found in our research, a lot of local shelters. All of those shelters have numerous pets, and some of those shelters work on limited budgets, so they have limited time, limited availability. So what we have done is created a foundation where those groups could aggregate their data so that clients can more easily look through it, have access to it on their time. And we've also developed a system that'll help people more easily connect with their potential pets. So Marie will talk about our planning process now.
To start off the planning process, we met with Nate to go over agile training. And this process really helped us break down the project into smaller bite-sized pieces that we could really tackle on a very restricted time limit of this week. This week, every day we came in, I basically broke down what absolutely had to be done. And then we broke that down even further into even smaller chunks of an hour or two. And then for that hour or two, we really just focused on getting that done. And then in between each iteration, we discussed how we feel our project is going, how we plan on tackling the next chunk, and how we see our project moving forward. Next, we go to the development stage.
So our development and challenges are very intertwined here. We ended up spending a lot of time mob programming, throwing up our code on the projector so that we could all look at it, assess the problem, and break it down step by step into what needed to be accomplished and how it needed to happen. I'd like to take a moment to touch on what each of our roles were in this project. Matt was kind of our scrum master when we had our merge conflicts. He would be the one who stepped in and looked at what was happening, what was wrong, and those redundancies that needed to get fixed. Marie was our project mom, our project manager. She was the one who broke down all of our iterations into those individual tasks. And I was the project owner. I was in charge of the GitHub, and between Matt and me, we were managing the GitHub project board. But on that note, we'll go to one of our biggest humps of the entire project. We used these 9 lines of code to reach our MVP. We want to match you, the users, with your ideal pet. So we needed a way to take all of the pets in our library and filter through and break it down into just the 2 that match your personality. So it was Wednesday when we finally reached our MVP. And that's exactly what this code does here. It goes through based on your input and each time filters it down further and further to the 2 or 3 matches that come back for you.
The part of the JavaScript that I worked on was the slideshow. And it was one of our stretch goals of the project, which we didn't know if we would get to because it was one of those flair items that just added a little bit extra to our page. This part of the code uses a iffy, which is an immediately invoked function expression, and it dynamically populates the slideshow using an image array, which you can see with the const image array. And we cycle through all of the pet images that we loaded into our images folder. And we pulled the code from Stack Overflow and used it to what we needed it to do, which was put the slideshow on the page.
All right, let's take a look at Rescuer. All right, so this is that dynamically generated slideshow that Marie was just talking about. We also have here our mission. So here at Rescuer, we pride ourselves on matching people with their ideal companions. We match our pets to you by their distinct personality traits and the amount of energy they have. Simply fill out our short questionnaire to see which pets would be perfect for you to add to your family today. And so then we have this form down at the bottom of the page with some required entry. Let's do this crowd participation style. Keith, do we have a volunteer? Keith? Of course. Cool. All right, Keith.
My name is Keith.
And we don't need your email address, but
My name is Keith at example.com.
that's perfect. Since we did put email validation on this, it is going to have to look right. Fantastic. How would you describe yourself, Keith?
I am very shy.
Shy?
I am easygoing
Easygoing?
and very neat.
Very neat. All right, let's find Keith his match. 2 matches. Skeletor and Jazzy. Let's see.
I'm also allergic to cats.
You are allergic to cats. This, if we had more time, we would have incorporated this question. Allergies. I imagine, though, Keith, you don't make a habit of shopping for pets to adopt? But anyway, it demonstrates how the function breaks down. If we want to take another guess, somebody out there, Francesco, hit us. This is fun too. Scroll back up. We use local storage to store the name of our user. So when you log back on through session refreshes, it will remember you and greet you. So it gives you that nice family feel. But let's get Francesco in here.
Yeah, let's just do another example.
You don't want to give us your email address, Francesco? We're not collecting it, I promise.
Yeah. Not yet.
We won't be spamming you. How would you describe yourself, Francesco?
Energetic, friendly, and disorderly.
Disorderly, all right. Oh, look at you. You got a lot of options here. You're not allergic to anything, are you?
No.
Perfect.
No allergies. No
Perfect.
dogs.
You can adopt 3 dogs today. You ready to do that, Francesco?
Absolutely. Sign me up.
I love it. If you're not quite sure how you feel or what kind of pet you want, we've got a solution for you as well.
This was one of our stretch goals. It was one of the last features that we implemented. Matt was the one who was able to do this last night, but if you don't really care what pet you're looking for, we added in a pet roulette.
So it's pretty simple. We've got a random integer function that we then tie to the indices of our pet array and our card render function here. And we get random pets. Random pets for you.
Otherwise, we also have a pet profiles page that lays out all of the options that are in our library. Another stretch goal we did not get to, but if we had more time, we would have liked to reach out to all of the local shelters and gain access to all of their databases. These are all fake pet profiles that we put together for sakes of this demonstration, but we would have loved to actually make this a way for you to see what's available in the shelters near you.
These are very real shelters, though. Support them if you need pets in your life.
So I added the social icon buttons to our page. We used our GitHub, Facebook, Instagram, and a Twitter. I created fake Facebook and fake Instagram so we could link those websites to those social icon buttons. And then Chase added this nifty little coming soon to our Twitter because I didn't create one of those. And then
That there was the one bit of CSS that I did for this project. Other than that, Matt here was our CSS wizard.
Let's go to the pet profiles and look at some of this dynamic styling. As you note, it's a lot of fun, right? Also on the cards here, we have some effects. We've got some statistics of sorts on the back of these cards. We would like that people connect with the description of the pet before they judge the pet based on their age or weight. So we've got this fun card flip effect for the pictures. It's got some stats on the back. And there we are in our pet profiles, but we also have an About Us page. And we linked chart.js to make a chart here, kind of laying out a statistical analysis of how our pets do with other pets, kids, and postal carriers. Very important, we thought. As you can see, kids and dogs kind of take far and ahead of cats and postal carriers as far as who these animals like to spend their time around.
questions?
Let's step to the side.
Yeah.
Questions. Who's got a question?
There's some on Facebook.
Yes, there should be.
First of all, lots of comments about how this is a cool idea that should really exist. And then Nate said, how did your priorities change from Monday to today?
Important.
Well, I think that was one thing I would have liked to have seen done differently throughout the week is Marie did a very good job breaking down our iterations into what needed to be accomplished, but I think I would have seen that broken down even more into individual tasks. So our prioritization seemed a little kind of all over the place to me, but we were still able to accomplish everything by working together. Like I said, much mob programming went into this.
Yeah, I think we did a really solid job Monday of laying out what our real MVP was and prioritizing that appropriately. But those were kind of higher level tasks. So when we started breaking it down into smaller bits that we could iterate through, we did find that sometimes some people would have really hefty jobs on their plates and some people would have something that they got through more quickly. So there was this kind of push and pull of, okay, what should I do next while somebody's working on something that's kind of lengthy? And we didn't necessarily have the bits small enough that they could be doled out appropriately.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Just breaking it down into more specific chunks, like add such and such button, add social icons, work on just the constructor function, or just simply adding a header or footer would have been nice. Just have a very specific task at hand, not a big chunk of style or create the HTML or create a whole page or just simple things like that that you could just break down even further into even more micro tasks.
Microtasks, I like that.
Any more?
Same question I asked the first group. Individually, what were your biggest challenges?
For me individually is really just understanding the logic behind what we're doing in the JavaScript. So for me, just in general, seeing mathy things is not the easiest part for me because I don't come from a math background. But having my teammates here to support me with that, and Chase especially is really good with JavaScript, so he can even break it down to more even like specific descriptions of why he's doing what he's doing and how to implement that in future things.
On that note, I think my biggest challenge was some of the more intricate JavaScript that there were moments where I would spend a fair amount of time just bashing my head against it, trying to figure out the solution. And we made an agreement at the beginning of the week in our planning that we wouldn't spend too much time trying to fight something that we couldn't figure out. And that was where the mob programming came in and really helped us get through those challenges.
I would say that a lot of my challenges laid with the CSS and some of the JavaScript logic. I was really dedicated to the idea of pet roulette, and that was last night. So we had already agreed that we'd hit our MVP, and that if we had done nothing else, the project would be presentable. But I wanted pet roulette. So that took a little bit of configuring to work out. And then some of the dynamic CSS styling presented some problems. I had a lot of at first all of the pet cards that you saw, they were all dynamically generated in JavaScript. So every section, article div, we appended in JavaScript. So I had to add some more divs and position them differently using CSS to get some of those effects to show up, to produce themselves in a visually appealing way. And that presented a degree of challenge yesterday.
So on Facebook, Jason said you've obviously learned a lot in 201. What's the hardest thing that you learned?
Probably actual application of everything we learned. Going through the whole course, I felt like I understood everything conceptually, but working on the projects and labs throughout the course, until this project, I had some difficulties, and this project actually brought that together, gave us a real-world application of what we've learned so far, so I feel a bit more confident now than I did at the beginning of the week.
Probably the hardest part for 201 for me was just learning JavaScript. I thought CSS was pretty easy after I struggled with that through the third week of class. Just learning how to lay out certain things on the page and how you should probably not put IDs on everything. But other than that, just JavaScript and learning logic behind things. Also reading others' code without knowing exactly what way they're going with that code or what they're trying to apply that code to is pretty hard, and I found that quite hard as well.
Maria makes a good point. Reading and understanding other people's JavaScript felt very, very difficult to me. Also, wrapping my head around nesting functions inside of other functions to create more dynamic functionality is still something hard to wrap my head around. You saw with the logic of our form submission that it was a series of nested comparisons, and I had initially conceived the logic that we then built the correct logic on top of, and I hadn't been able to wrap my head around the necessity of nesting. I thought to use logical ORs, but then when we put it up on the projector and Chase had this notion that nesting was necessary, it made a lot of sense, but I wasn't quite prepared to get there, personally.
Step by step, we get to our goals. Any more?
So I'll ask the same question. So if you have to meet over again, so you've already mentioned that you would slice the tasks more kind of specifically. Is there anything else that you would do differently knowing what you know now?
Now that I'm holding it, oh, okay, thank you.
I think if we did the project all over again, I would definitely kind of not waste as much time thinking over like elaborate ideas about what we're gonna do next, or how like this pet roulette. We were done with our MVP yesterday, and we did look through different like snippets of how we could have utilized a actual like kind of like a roulette wheel, but we got. Like, I wish we would have just been like, well, this is a bit too much right now, and there's too many doors to open for this exact piece of work, because I definitely envisioned it as like a giant spinning wheel that you like spinned, and then it automatically like landed on a pet and then popped up the profile. So there's just too many different things for that. So I wish we would have just maybe did a little bit more with our just base MVP. So I would have done that differently.
I think the main thing I would have done differently would be just structuring out a better order of operations. These are our goals for this particular feature of the site, and just instead of, we had a lot of moments where we would be working on something and then we might jump over to a different thing and start working on that. So actually having that this is first, this is second, this is third order of operations, I think would have helped us achieve more of our stretch goals.
Yeah.
Jason had another question. How long did each person sit on a problem before reaching out for help, and what resources did you consult?
So we really had that rule in place that if we spent longer than 15 minutes on a problem, we need to reach out to either our teammates, to Craig and Ian, or yesterday I saw Robbie walking by and I was like, hey, could you help us look over this code and find out what's going wrong for us? I thought we would need a variable, which we need a variable. I just didn't know how to get to that variable. So we had that rule in place from the get-go.
I would say we probably didn't spend more than 10 or 15 minutes in an actual standstill. The internet is full of resources, so even if it seems like we're stuck, we're on Stack Overflow or the W3 schools, or asking each other. Not having Craig and Ian ever present in the classroom presented a new kind of challenge for us, because we either had to hope that they would respond to our Slacks and could understand the problem that we were presenting to them, or we had to really rely on each other. So as Chase had mentioned, we did a lot of mod programming when there were functions that we weren't quite getting to work right. We were also really good about asking each other if they needed help, if they looked perplexed. I guess we're all very expressive people. I think we look perplexed when we look perplexed. Always. So we did a really good job of helping each other out and utilizing web available resources. Yeah. Do you have anything to say, Chase? Great.
My name is Brennan. I am currently a software developer student here at DeltaV. After a couple years of working temp jobs, moving on boxes, pushing buttons, talking to unhappy customers, I decided I really wanted a long-term career, especially one-to-one in a more technical field and something that could be better at challenging me. I kind of stumbled into DeltaV, and the longer it's gone on, the more I've enjoyed it. I've had a lot of fun taking a big idea like this website here, break it down into its smaller components, figure out how to get them to work. I've even had fun with the troubleshooting all the problems that always come up. I am looking forward to continuing on with the program, learning more, learning how to do this better, and then utilize my new skills in a new career.
Hi, my name is Stacy. I moved here from DC to go to Coe College for my degree in psychology. After graduating there, I worked for several years as a sign language interpreter. I ended up finding out about DeltaV through work and sort of fell in love with it. Started playing around with some basic Python, some basic JavaScript on my own free time, and also started feeling pretty stagnant in my career and found myself at work just wanting to spend my days coding. So I decided to make the plunge and join DeltaV. I have really enjoyed the program so far. I'm really enjoying being able to collaborate with others, to use critical thinking and problem solving continuously to develop and maintain software that impacts the lives of others. And I'm super excited to continue throughout this program through 401.
My name is Francesco. I'm from Waterloo, Iowa. I have a background from working jobs in customer service, and one of the focuses that we had really picked up on was understanding people, wanting to help them and let them do better in their lives. When coming to DeltaV, I had come through the advice of a good friend of mine. Through that advice, I kind of just jumped straight into everything. After a little bit of research in becoming a full-stack web developer, I learned that I could take some of my knowledge and my understanding of those things and apply that into the wonderful world of coding. I'm excited to develop those skills even further and apply them to future prospects. Which leads us to our problem domain for our website, Method.it. We had wanted to find a way for emerging developers to work on, practice, and develop their skills with JavaScript array methods. So Method.it is a desktop web app that uses flashcards as a study and learning process of learning those JavaScript array methods. For our domain model, first we had sketched out our domain model, which helped us better understand how we wanted our users to experience the site. We start at our home page, and essentially our main focus was our study page. It contains our list of issues, problems, and a way for you to solve and interact with our note cards on the site. We share and store that information in our site and allows you to come back to it, and that helps you develop your skills through that learning process.
So after sketching out our domain model and understanding what our problem domain was, we embarked on our planning process. So we took an agile approach to planning out our project, first developing a working agreement, which gave us a framework for keeping everybody on the team accountable, especially this being our first project, our group project in the world of coding. So as you can see here, there's just some basic guidelines, such as what we expected our working hours to be, when breaks would be taken, and making sure that we were communicating with each other. And that was usually done in person or via Slack when we were working remote. And during the current time and situation of things, we very playfully added no cannibalism in there. So from there, we established our MVP, what at a minimum we needed to get done in order for this this website to meet our problem domain. And so from there, we developed user stories, which kind of sketched out from a user's perspective what we wanted them to be able to do on Method.it. And From there, we broke that down into acceptance criteria, which was, what does that look like? We've got our user stories, what we want our users to do, but how do we know when we've actually managed to complete the work that needed to be done for our users to do that? And so from there, we were able to take our acceptance criteria and then break that down even more so into tickets on a Trello board that we then used to plan our sprints out. We also then, after that, we wanted to sketch out what we wanted Method It to look like, so we created some wireframes. So as you can see, this is what we wanted our landing page to look like, or the home page, our About Us page, our study page, so where the action happens, and our glossary page. And then as you can see, this is an example of our Trello board. So this was taken towards the end of our project, this little snapshot. But as you can see, we had what was, aside of the next up was a backlog. And then next up, what we felt was coming next, what was in progress, and what we had finished. And as you can see, at the start of each sprint, we kind of broke down the tickets and doled out those responsibilities and who would take what. And so we often assigned those or took on those tickets based on what we felt our strengths were and what we felt like we could best contribute to our project. And I'm going to hand it over to Brennan, who will help us dive into our code.
All right, here we have a couple samples of our code. The first one is the constructor function that creates the objects for questions. It contains what the question is, the name of it, and the answers. The program would reference these objects through the rest of the program for it to function. Next one. And here we have where it actually took the user's answer that they inputted and checked it against the correct answer stored in local storage. It checked that, and then it changed the websites appropriately depending on the response, which you will see in the demo in a little bit. All right, and here we have our randomizer function that basically shuffles the questions in the flashcards, so to try not to get you as many repeats and then doesn't double up on one round.
And now Francesco is going to run us through a demo of our website.
I get the fun part. So this is our landing page. You are allowed to enter a username, and this will track throughout the site. If you do take a quick note to the bottom, it does produce a generated message already for you. This will change as you go throughout the site through programming jokes, just to give a sense of fun to the website as you kind of go through everything. If you're ever studying too much, you can just take a quick second to look at that, refresh, and then go back into it. This does carry a lot of just what happens in the website, what it's about, and then if you're ever confused, you can come back here, and this middle paragraph here will direct you on what's happening with our site. So then we can head to the study page. And this is our hub. Each of the nodes on the outstretched ends are clickable, and that will produce a flashcard. This flashcard has a JavaScript array method, a problem, and then a question. And then essentially what you do is you input whether, based off of the answer that you believe it is, and that will dynamically change the node for you. So we answered it correctly, so that changed the node to blue. So you know you did get it correct, and then we can click another node, and so it's asking copy within, and then what we think will happen when we copy within, but we do not know this answer this time. So if we submit that, it changes the node to red instead. So if we don't happen to know that, we can always hop over to our glossary page. This contains a list of all the definitions for these JavaScript array methods, and it highlights the back of them based off of how you're doing so far. This data tracks, and essentially we had gotten the first one correct, which then gives us this message at the very bottom that says you have gotten this right 100% of the time, and then changes the background to gold. But if we head to our other one where we did not get it correct, the copy within. it will change to a red and then let you know that you haven't gotten it correct. So this will track throughout. So if we head back to our study page, one of the things that we had wanted to include in one of our stretch goals was keeping the node colors until we reset the hub, but you'll see that this is still showing that same card, so you can hop back to that card without having it reset. But if we were to press the center button, that would reset all 8 nodes. So then you can have 8 new problems to go through again and re-answer, and then it'll dynamically change between the red or the blue, whether you're getting them incorrect or correct. So then our other page on here is our About Us page. It just kind of covers who we are and has beautiful headshots for us all. And then we can even head back to our home page by clicking our logo. And you can resubmit a name if someone else wants to be on that computer and have their own study session. So, and then we will cover other stretch goals and our reflections.
So one of our stretch goals that we kind of established at the beginning of this week was we wanted to be able to save the state of the study page. That was something that obviously we saved as a stretch goal, so once we were able to finish our MVP in the last day and a half, that's when we really started trying to work towards that. So as you could see, so far we had gotten it so that if you clicked onto the glossary page or you clicked on a different page and you went back to the study page, the flashcards would still be rendered to those nodes unless you press the refresh button or the center hub button. But hadn't quite gotten, if we had more time, we would have gotten to saving the color of those nodes in addition to the flashcards. Another functionality that if we had more time we would include would be a timer, just in case a user wants to challenge themselves even more and to have a time limit on how much time they have to answer one of those flashcards. Another functionality that if we had more time would have been the flip functionality. So like a actual flip card or flash card, and instead of necessarily having the glossary page with the definitions, having a flashcard that would render with the definition of that array method, and then you could click to then flip the flashcard to the other side, where it would then give you that practice problem and the input and the opportunity to answer that. Another stretch goal that we established that we did get to was the saving the accuracy data, which you saw when we went to the glossary page. It showed us, how based on how many times we viewed it and how many times we answered it, how many times we got that specific array method practice problem correct. And then another functionality would have been a login field for a user to then log in and to save their progress that way. Some reflections from this past week. I think, working as a team was a challenge at first, being able to take several individuals who have strong opinions of what they think is right and being able to compromise those and to become a unified front in what we felt our vision for this web app would be. Balancing planning and doing. So, how much time we invested in breaking down each ticket and planning that all out versus actually doing those things. Just finding that balance was something we navigated. Understanding somebody else's code. I know another group mentioned this too, but when somebody works on, especially in JavaScript, when somebody works on one part of the functionality and you're adding on to that or you're building off of that, trying to go through and understand how they set that up, how they wrote their code before you can go in and then build off of that, I think was a challenge. It was, a new experience for us. And then also the Git process. While we didn't have too many Git snafus, just getting that down and making sure, when we were merging in, pulling into master, merging, the most recent master into our branches that we were working on, et cetera, in that process, and making sure that we weren't writing conflicting code. And so that really required a lot of communication. And so that was just another thing that, we learned how to navigate throughout this past week. And that brings us to questions.
Same question as always. Individual challenges? Or what was your hardest challenge as an individual?
I suppose my biggest problem would be I could write out the JavaScript functions, get it to work, and then they wouldn't play well with each other. So then I have to go back to the program and try to, line by line, figure out what's going on with this, what's going on with that. And the stretch goal we worked on, the state persistence, that was definitely difficult, and you can see it's still not quite working.
I think the most challenging thing for me, I think, would be building off of somebody else's code, reading through and understanding, how they were using certain variables or how they were storing things, and then being able to build off of that. And also making sure that, keeping in the same unified vision of what we wanted this web app to do, because there's so many things that this could do, and there's so many ideas and stuff that could be added to this. And so I think just keeping that consistent throughout the week, I think that was a challenge as well.
Yeah, hitting on that last part for sure is having that idea in your head and then presenting that idea to other people and having them be like, ooh, we could do this and this and this, and then it completely changes everything that you had originally thought you wanted to do. And then being able to work with them, understand what they're coming from and what they're applying, and that you can make still a unified project together. Coming together in that sense is definitely the big struggle point. So. I think when we started, we had a very good base of what was happening in the website. A lot of our functionality was happening. It seemed that we just didn't have a beautiful website at first. So I felt that my priorities had changed from making sure that the site was functional versus a visibly pleasing site. That kind of moved throughout the week, and just making sure that one of the other things that we had seen is that we had to create 30 definitions and 30 array problems and make sure all of the answers are correct and make sure that it sits on that note card perfectly. So at the beginning of the week, it wasn't too much of a focus. And then towards the end of the week, it was like, okay, I'm going to comb through the answers again and make sure that they look good and make sure that they do work and are correct.
Yeah, to add on to what Francesco said, I think, at the beginning of the week, our focus is, all right, we've got to knock out our MVP. And that's just, we have to have something to show for it, a finished product that at least by bare bones does what we want it to do. And then throughout the week, as we realized, we've got that under control, then shifting that priority to polishing things up. And yes, making sure that when we ran through our demo, making sure that we were with having so many array methods and the way that we had structured that code, making sure that, what we were inputting, not only was accurate, but for that concept or for that array method. So not only the accuracy of the answers that we had put in to validate the user's answers against, but also making sure that that was lined up or, matched up with the correct array method and the correct question. So just a lot of polishing and fine tuning and double checking through all that.
Yeah, but at first you just want to, get it functional, get things started, looking nice, and then as the week goes on, it's more about getting things to work well together, getting them to work smoother. A lot of our parties shifted later in the week to, okay, how can we help each other, make sure we have everything done, and then then trying to polish up the final product and getting to be the best we can.
And then Jason was asking, did you guys have a pull request review process?
Yes, we set it up so that we can only pull it and merge it to master after at least one other person in the group has reviewed the new material.
Did you find one person did most of the reviews, or did everyone participate?
It really depended. Like we would finish something and we would either be in here and say like, hey, I finished this, can we look at this? Or we would be at home and put it on Slack like, I have an open pull request, can we look at this? So it wasn't one person.
Yeah, I think we balanced out the pull requests like who would approve those pretty evenly, and just the work that we did. I feel like we all evenly contributed in our own ways, and I feel like that's pretty consistent not only with the Git process and the pull requests, but throughout the work.
Can you talk a little bit more about the actual quiz engine? Like, so are you randomizing the values and then the function, like, or are these just kind of like pre-written questions with a known answer? Like, how does that work?
You want to talk?
Okay. So we have a couple of ways set up with the name, the method name. We have pre-written questions and pre-written answers in two separate ways. Then we tie them all together with the construction function into the object, and then the randomizer generates numbers that it uses for IDs for the different nodes. Then it connects the two together to create the random flashcards.
Jason wanted to know what's the biggest change you see in yourself from the first day of 201 to today?
That would probably be being up here talking and and not running away.
The biggest change from the beginning of 201 till now, probably because a lot of this is critical thinking and problem solving and working through logic. I think, at the beginning of 201 and beginning of this program, we were really focused on working through, even though it's a very verbose way of doing it, working through and writing out the logic so that we can understand it better. And I think just being able to take that approach, like first this needs to do this, and then it needs to do that, and then it needs to do that, and that process, and just being able to put yourself in that frame of mind, I think that is something that I feel like for me has, morphed or changed the most so far, and I'm sure it will continue throughout the program.
I think the biggest change I saw in myself was my ability to ask questions throughout my learning process. I'd always felt that I would be stuck in just like, I need to sit through this, I need to do this myself, but realizing that I have so many different options between our TA or the instructor or even the people I'm standing up here with now, that I can reach out to them and they're going through a lot of the same things that I'm going through, and then that we can kind of work that together and then figure it out. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you, Francesco. Thanks, everybody at home, for watching. Join us on April 24th to see them present their 301 projects. Thanks. Have a great day.